But let's go ahead and read the Tyee. Independent, fearless, and reader funded. I do like that. Maybe they're trustworthy. Um, so there's a problem out there, people, and his name is Clavicular. We got to stop him. I don't know what. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how we let it come this far, but we did. And obviously, this is related to Looksmaxxing. We're gonna read this article by the Tyee, or like the magazine or whatever, the Tyee. Uh, what Looksmaxxing says about modern masculinity. I have a feeling it's not going to be anything good, but um, this is Gillian Sunderland and Jordan Foster. So we'll see what it has to say. Okay. As young men struggle, many have embraced extreme attempts to alter their experience. Young men and teenage boys are learning to see their faces and bodies as projects to measure and optimize. On social media platforms like Reddit, Instagram, and TikTok, jawlines are dissected, cheekbones compared, and perceived flaws cataloged. Widely viewed videos and reels help users to rank their faces and identify areas for improvement. They also advise on just how best to bulk up, trim down, make over, and become more desirable and more masculine. See, I could use that help on this part, the trim down. Just kidding. I feel like I'm pretty lean right now, but ever since I've gotten a little older, I have a very hard time getting that bottom pack of the six pack to show. So, but yeah, let's see. This growing practice of ritualized self scrutiny and the litany of solutions in service of it, known as looks maxing. And also the more masculine thing is a little bit I don't I mean first of all that's arbitrary, but also I like have you seen Clavicular? Like he is a very androgynous, like effeminate looking person to me. But let's see. These solutions range from bizarre but mundane ones like mewing, the practice of continuously flattening the tongue against the roof of the mouth to define the jawline. Yeah, that's way too much work, but too far to far more dangerous ones like bone smashing, which involves repeatedly tapping facial bones with solid objects like a bottle or even a hammer in order to force them to sharpen for a defined look. A lot of this is kind of a mix of just like unhinged teenager shit, um, like combined with gamification algorithms is kind of my interpretation from a strictly like because like teenagers have always been unhinged. I was a teenager once. We were unhinged. Like uh things that like can prove your manhood in some way, shape or form are huge with teenagers and I think they always will be to some extent. Um but this is like kind of I feel like funneling it into this really like gross body dysmorphia isolating like self-isolating sort of like algorithm shit that is like gonna go nowhere good fast. But for scholars who study masculinity and social media like we do, okay, they must be, relatively knowledgeable about the subject matter. This phenomenon suggests that something about masculinity might require serious critical analysis. You don't say. Our work examines the rise of male beauty culture as concomitant demands. Oh, that's a big word. I gotta look up what that one is. It's concomitant demands the increasing aesthetic labor men invest in their appearance and the cultural pressures shaping young men today. And what we found is that there is a common pattern. As traditional pathways to masculine status, such as stable work, home ownership, and long term partnerships, are delayed or feel out of reach, the body becomes a locus of control, a site on which to reclaim power and sculpt a new vision of modern manhood. That is basically exactly what my assumption was going to be. And you know me, I never miss an opportunity to bash capitalism, but I have to here because all of these things are the outcomes of capitalism. The degradation of like work, of like not being able to get a good job, of making things harder, just generally making it generally harder to be successful. Um, the self-isolating nature that is necessary under capitalism, as opposed to finding things like community or structural forms of collectivization, such as like unions or civic government or civic engagement. Like all of these things coalesce into a like a very nihilistic uh, a very nihilistic view for men, especially as like capitalism necessitates like multiple like both partners to be in the workforce and all of that stuff. And men have been told these stories throughout their entire lives of like what it what it means to be a man and how to be masculine and stuff. Um, a lot of that just kind of like this is just exactly what I was expecting, basically. And I personally blame capitalism. But appearance becomes one of the few domains where control still feels possible inside the looks maxing culture. While some of these practices that young men and boys have become preoccupied with are innocuous enough, the popularity of looks maxing does raise concerns. Self-described looks maxers organize their efforts through intensive ranking systems and pseudoscientific hierarchies. For instance, online guides encourage users to measure facial symmetry, jaw width, and canthal tilt, the angle of one's eyes relative to one's cheekbones, as if masculine desirability could be quantified through technical metrics. Um, this feels very, uh, very reminiscent of like online, like girl social media stuff from a while ago, to some extent. I think a lot of girls went through a sort of similar sort of like body, you know, body dysmorphia, over analyzing every part of their body sort of thing. And to some extent, it feels like men are kind of catching up, along with all the other aspects that they mentioned above in terms of feeling like this is one of the only ways that they can change themselves in a positive way anymore. Um, Others insist that nothing can upgrade the face faster than reducing body fat and provide instructions on how to achieve a lethal face card, something for someone who is exceptionally good looking. Um, Potentially somebody who's on the verge of death, though, as well. If you, I would suggest people don't go too far under 10% body fat if you're, you know, if you want to listen to me. But these difficult standards and ranking systems often produce deeply rooted hierarchies of race and class by centering the Chad body or the archetypal alpha male, a white, muscular, aggressively dominant, and affluent male. Um, Definitely, yeah, I assure you that uh, there's going to be a lot of like white supremacy in these circles, if I had to guess, in terms of who is quote unquote the most attractive or whatever. In recent years, Looksmaxxing, initially confined to fringe incel spaces and the broader online manosphere where communities of men debate status through often misogynistic beliefs about women, yeah, it kind of grew out of that, is my understanding, has been sanitized for public consumption. As the concept entered mainstream digital culture, these pressures increasingly encroach on the lives of young men and boys. Its organizing logic is simple. In order to reassert power and to reclaim their place as manly citizens, meeting specific aesthetic standards through a series of grooming tactics is a necessary strategy. Um, it is interesting to me that they choose specifically aesthetics as the only way to become. Well, I think it has to do, yeah, it must be the manly portion of it because there's lots of ways that you can make yourself more desirable to women. You could become funnier or something. You could become I don't know, more interesting. Like you do more things in your private life or whatever. Uh, like maybe you have a you start going to movies more and you become a movie guy or whatever, right? Like you can become interesting in that way. Or maybe you become more artistic, right? You pick up painting or you pick up uh I don't know, drawing big titty anime girls or whatever, right? I assure you, you could find someone who is also into that, by the way, if you do that. So it is interesting to me that all of these, that the algorithm and whatever like forces are kind of pushing men in this direction are always pushing them straight to the only way that you can improve yourself is through like aesthetic. I think that's probably also related to capitalism through you know, like commodification of everything. Everybody feels like uh everything's a commodity, and like same with like you as a person, and your aesthetics are a commodity to be bought and sold in the marketplace of sex or whatever. Like I think there's probably a connection there, but okay. As many young men push back against gender equality and reframe it as producing male disadvantage, Looksmaxxing offers a seductive explanation for exclusion. You are simply aesthetically deficient, and that can't be fixed. Oh, well, that's a sad way to look at the world. Masculinity in an era of uncertainty. To understand why looksmaxing has gained traction, we need to look beyond social media and toward the broader conditions shaping young men's lives. For much of the 20th century, masculine status was closely tied to the breadwinner model through which men's authority and status flowed from stable employment and the ability to provide for their family. That model has steadily eroded as capitalism makes it impossible for one person to make enough money for two people or an entire family. Dear God. Luckily, I only have three cats, not like a whole ass human that I have to take care of. But in much of the industrial world, stable career ladders have given way to contractor gig based economy and less secure employment opportunities. The rise of AI has intensified employment anxieties further as young men confront a labor market where entire sectors of white collar work are unstable. Other status markers of adulthood have eroded. That's very new, by the way. The whole AI anxieties and stuff is very new. And I think looks maxing was coming around way before that became a thing. But other status markers of adulthood have eroded as well. Young people today are less likely to own a home, face higher levels of economic precarity, and are entering romantic relationships later, with a growing share of young men reporting little to no dating experience. Um, yeah, yeah. I think phones are a big problem too here. Like I kind of feel like maybe this is just me being a boomer or whatever, but um, I think being forced to like go out and engage with people in the real world and just generally being out in society more would lead to more dating experience and just people being, I don't know, because dating is also something that you kind of have to practice and learn how to do, and it's not like it's not like you just go into it like being good at dating or whatever, or some people do, I'm sure. I definitely wasn't. um so I think that like you kind of need to be thrown in the deep end to some extent and just like it just kind of happen and practice and all that sort of stuff to some extent as well. Not that like you should be treating people as practice for your date, but like, you know, you'll get better with it over time is kind of what I'm saying. Um, as the economic and social foundations of traditional masculinity weaken, the cultural scripts linking men to guaranteed partnership, power, and authority have become less certain. These shifts are also unfolding alongside changing attitudes towards gender. According to Ipsos, nearly one-third of Gen Z men globally agree that a wife should obey her husband. Oof. Suggesting a resurgence of hierarchical views of gender relations among some young men. That is not going to help you, my guys. That sort of those sort of thoughts are not going to help you out in the world of dating. Um, in this climate, Looksmaxxing reframes structural barriers as individual shortcomings. Young men are told that recognition and status can be that's classic capitalism shit too. Uh, Taking structural issues and reducing them to individual shortcomings. Same thing with like global warming. They said, oh, you must individually recycle. You can't do anything about, you know, corporations or like, or the structure of society to change that, or like Medicare for all. Like, I don't know. There's all types of things where they say like, uh, where there's like structural things that they frame as like individual, like you just individually have to be better and it'll solve all the problems. So that's just classic capitalism. Um, Young men are told that recognition and status can be reclaimed through straightforward investments in their appearance. Things like sharpening their jaw, building muscle, and cultivating the coveted hunter eyes. I don't think I have those, as far as I know. Eyes that are deep set and almond shaped with minimal upper eyelid exposure and no white visible below the iris, often associated with intensity and confidence. That seems ungodly specific. one more section. The business of self-optimization. Social media platforms in relevant industries, including male skincare companies, profit from young men's preoccupations with perfection, often with little or no mention of the physical, social, emotional, or economic consequences that accompany such appearance practices, let alone the structural issues that underscore them. Male anxiety is being monetized in the form of supplements, fitness coaching, and cosmetic interventions, including multi step skincare regimens and intensive injections. Um, on its surface, there's nothing wrong with any of these things, right? Doing like working out, doing some like cosmetic stuff, or like I'm talking more like doing more skincare or whatever. Like all of these things can be a part um, of making yourself like a better person, or like not necessarily a better person, but like just improving yourself in ways, right? The thing that you don't want to do though is like you want to be improving for yourself, and you want to be doing it like as a way to just gain fulfillment in your life or whatever. And you don't want to be doing it in like a overzealot, weird, commodifying sort of way, or uh like I guess that's kind of how I would phrase it, because all of these things by themselves, there's nothing wrong with doing, but it shouldn't be a replacement for uh like being like loving yourself, or being like, having uh like caring for yourself, like, like that sort of stuff. Is kind of how I would say. And there's always obviously a point where it becomes too much as well, that you gotta watch out for. Because I think a lot. I still haven't fixed it, but I think a lot of this is people you doing all of this stuff specifically for outwards projection or whatever, for like for other people and whatnot. And I think that when you do it like that, it can become it's a very slippery slope to becoming like uh you know going too far, I guess. In this appearance oriented environment filled with brand messaging, masculinity becomes a competitive asset to be purchased. Boys and young men have gradually become a highly profitable demographic, with corporations and businesses doubling down on advertisements and product offerings targeted specifically at them. According to a leading provider of global business intelligence, market research, and consumer insights, the men's beauty products and skincare industry globally will be worth more than $5 billion dollars in 2027. The question is no longer whether young men will pay attention to Looksmaxxing and invest, but how far they'll go in pursuit of occupational, social, sexual, and economic prestige. Yeah, it's sad. The future for young men is sad. Um, I've said before that I think that this sort of stuff to some extent is almost sort of natural, especially in our society, for the say 13 to 16-year-old range. Um, and I think a lot of 13 to 16-year-olds can grow out of it if they get exposed to the real world afterwards, if they don't become shut-ins. And I think that's the biggest way, because I almost fell into like the pickup artist shit around that age range when I was younger. And but I came out of it as I made friends in college, and I had like people of, different backgrounds that I talked to, and I learned about it, and and I didn't become like a weird shut-in who never went outside and stuff. So I think that like to some extent, just also just people need to go outside more, especially after they finish high school. That's like in a kind of, I don't know, maybe a oversimplistic thing that people could do or whatever. But yeah, this was an interesting article, well written. I like this whatever this website is, the Tyee. They seem to have it going on. I liked it. I'll have to read more from them in the future.